Okay. Good morning. Good morning, Accra. Okay. How's everybody doing out there? Got a huge crowd. That's awesome. I like it. Okay, let's bring it down to my level. It's kind of, yeah, hard to start after that. No pressure. But let's get going. I know most people, when they come here to see me, it's not to hear me talk, but it's to look at all of our images, all the maps and everything. I'm from TeleGeography, and you probably know us from our maps. And did want to start off with talking about where all this data comes from that I'm going to be presenting today. And we have a report that we cover IP backbones, and we survey all the major ISPs, backbone providers, to gather this data. And the report actually is just about to come out. It comes out in 1 to 2 weeks. So you guys are getting a preview of the Africa section of the report. And of course, I do a lot more than what's in the actual report. And I've been told I have extra time to speak. So I put in more slides. So prepare yourself. It's like, I'm sorry, but it's something like 50 slides. So we're going to have some fun. And I have to start off talking a little bit about my first AFPIP, 2015, Maputo. That was the right year. At that time, the buzz was all East Africa. Okay, so it's East Africa, we're doing this, we're building out this, we have terrestrial to this. And all the capacity is there, the prices are dropping on these, etc. Well, now we're back on the west side. I have to represent west side. So we're here. On est là. OK? C'est bien. Parce qu'avant, je faisais que côté ouest, parce que je faisais tous mes des recherches dans l'ouest de l'Afrique et pas dans l'est. Donc, à ce moment-là, je représentais, I was representing the West. So now I don't have to represent the West anymore, because the West is really a lot of things. It's really shaking and moving. And, you know, we can tell that. I mean, look at Lagos. Look at how many IXs are there. Oh, yeah. A little announcement. TeleGeography is opening up their IX in Lagos in 2025. All right. One more. No, just kidding. That's a joke. That's a joke. So, I couldn't say that last year because I came on right after Minister, but since I'm going before Minister this year, I think it's okay to say that. So okay. So here we go. So West Side, now we're going to talk a lot about the West Side. Okay, we're all up. Okay, great. Okay, what we're going to cover, if you've sat through a couple of our these presentations, we're going to start kind of big picture global and then kind of focus in on Africa. So what we'll be talking about, global networks, how fast are they growing? Subcables, it's telegeography, so we have a lot of information about subcables. So we'll talk a little bit about subcables. So it'll look familiar, some of these slides, but believe me, it's new data that's been updated. So, and you know, for continuity, I have a lot of the same slides, but that we update so you can see them change over the years. And also, like, we'll be talking a little bit about content providers, where they're building their cloud regions, their DCs, etc. Because guess what? That kind of fuels growth in many areas. And of course, we're going to talk about pricing and watch it coming down in different areas. Then we'll focus on African bandwidth trends. We'll be comparing a lot intra-African versus Africa to Europe capacity. And then looking at localized content growth, just a little bit of infrastructure. I have a few new slides on that. And then extra bonus, although I may have spoken a little bit about this last year, we'll look at end user demand. We'll look at 4G and FTTH in Africa, because that's affecting a lot of things. And there's a lot of capacity there, et cetera, that's being fueled by that. And just a couple of slides at the end, because I get this question all the time. What's happening with Africa? How's it going to change? You know, what's going to happen? You know, who knows? No, we'll look at some other regions with maybe some similar events and see if we can apply that to what's going on. And there we go. Did I go too far? I lost it. Oh. Ashley? What's that? Do we lose it or? Please stand by. I can just talk too, but I know you guys want to see the slides. I did. I'm done. Everything else is, oh, I have some jokes about, no, I'm just kidding. You said not to say those jokes, but what's that? Say what's happening in French? Oh yeah, je sais pas. Ah, no? Because I have it here, I can see it, but you guys can't. Oh, okay. Okay, now it's time for the song. Hey, no. Let's turn this around and we can see. What's that? Yeah. Which slide? Which slide is the best? Hi. I didn't break it though, did I? Oh, okay. Seriously? Oh yeah, I can do it here. Okay. Yeah, that's what I said. Just turn the monitor around. But I can't even go through the, oh, there we go. Wait. Sorry, just one sec. I'm clicking through too, but it's not a little delayed. I will start talking, just a sec. I have to get this working too. All right, we're back. Okay. Yay. Whew. Okay. Oops. Sorry, there's like a super long delay for the clicker. So we kind of just call out next slide because this is like, oh, there we go. Okay, let's start. Big scene, going back to global, big picture. The report and the data that we're going to cover, a lot of it is going to be IP capacity. And if we look at the international level, this is what we've seen the CAGR for 2019, 2023. Growth for IP backbone, it's still growing. I mean, it's slowing down slightly, but we have 25 to 30% growth globally. But we see if we look at Africa, it's much ahead of the other regions, 44%, of course, starting from a smaller base, but still pretty awesome growth. Okay, And then looking ahead, forecasted, it's looking about the same amount of growth, 2022, 2029, 40%, over 40% growth for Africa, where the global average is 32. So we see a lot of capacity for Africa going on. Sorry, it's literally like a 20-second delay for the clicker. There. Okay. A lot of this growth is being fueled, especially between regions, submarine cable growth. We see the next 3 years. This is similar to what we saw last year for investment in submarine cable. 2023, 2025, we're seeing huge amount of investment of cables coming online. There are over 70, I think 76 total submarine cables that will be coming online within the next 3 years. Okay, this is what it looks like. 2021, 2023. These are all the recently activated cables. We see pretty much every continent has a new cable, and by the size of the blue circles as landings. So the bigger the circle, the more landings in a location. So we see a lot of landings in like through Europe and down basically the corridor down past between Africa and Middle East, the Saudi Peninsula, and then over to India and in Southeast Asia. That's where we're seeing a lot of the cables coming on. One of the factors that is fueling this, both the sub cables and where we're seeing a lot of capacity growth, is of course the large content providers, particularly the cloud providers. In this slide, what we're tracking is the number of cloud regions by market. And where we see a lot of these cables coming online kind of corresponds exactly with what we're seeing for the cloud regions coming online. And then just one slide, global, talking about pricing. In Africa, where we're still talking about 10G. The rest of the world is well into 100G, of course, and eyeing 400G coming. In this slide, what we're seeing is we're comparing 10 gig versus 100 gig. You see the price per meg, of course, for 100 gig is lower, and its prices are going down faster. Because now, as part of its sales mix, 10G is a very small part globally, where it's all 100G. We expected to see some slowdown in price erosion with inflation, with the supply chain problems. We see that a little on the transport side, but on the IPT side, the IP transit side, we are not seeing a slowdown. Prices continue to fall.
Nous n'avons pas un quelconque ralentissement en moyenne.
There. For 10G. And in Africa, it's a little bit different, but that's on average. So 10G, we're really seeing phasing out now. I don't even know when I'm clicking or not, it's going. Okay, now we're going to shift to Africa. This is what you're here for. Yes. Okay, starting off with the sub-cable landings. Highest number, this is like very similar to last year, not a huge amount of changes, but a lot of the landings are actually up in the Northeast, mostly in like Cairo or in Egypt, Djibouti, and in Kenya. But actually there's a very similar number of landings in West Africa, but they're spread out in more locations. So the dots are a little bit smaller. These are the sub-cables. These are all the major sub-cables that are coming online in the next few years. This doesn't include some of the smaller ones that just came online, like Share, T3, but these are the larger ones. Equiano just came online. To Africa will be starting to come online soon. And then a little bit further down the line, we have Africa One, Ramen, IEX, and Medusa in the north, and then Simiwi on the way to Asia, passing by Africa. So a lot of activity, except for to Africa, a lot of activity in the Northeast. And then this is one of the fun maps. This is the not as the sadder map. No, this is showing all international IP connectivity in Africa and where it is going, or basically where it's connected to. And as you can see by all the fat bands going north, a lot of the international capacity is still connected to Europe. Okay. But we're going to dig into that a little bit more, and we're going to, because it's not all going north. But other things to kind of notice, this is kind of the one with all the international capacity, just to show what's going on. But I always have to point out, like, you see some intra-African routes popping up. Like to South Africa, Zimbabwe, or probably the biggest routes that's intra-African. One of them is Kenya, Uganda, and also Nigeria, Accra. Okay. Or to Ghana. And so these are popping up in the larger ones. I don't think I actually pushed it, but okay. Okay, and if we look at the total number, and sorry, I've said this before, but it's worth mentioning, but we'll go into a little bit more detail. 80% of international IP connectivity in Africa is still to Europe. Why? And it's like, oh, it's not changing. But what you do, if you look a little bit closer and you break apart North Africa from Sub-Saharan Africa, then you see what's happening. That in North Africa, pretty much, and it's funny, we were talking about this last night, remember? All the connectivity for most of the North African countries is to Europe. They do not interconnect. Algeria usually doesn't interconnect with or connect to Morocco, etc. They just go straight up to Europe. So almost 100% of the international connectivity in the north is back up to Europe. There are historical reasons, because the Med always had a lot of subcables, so there's a lot of connectivity to north. And plus, a lot of the content is in Europe. So yeah, it was easier just to go to Europe rather than build locally and connect there. So that's why you see a huge amount of capacity. But the interesting thing is, if you're gonna, I mean, it's interesting the north too, but it's very interesting when you go to Sub-Saharan Africa, you see the actual, the connectivity or to Europe has been dropping over the years, and is now around 60%. This is where we're seeing a lot more intra-African connectivity coming on. Oop, oh no, don't go twice. Okay. Okay. Now, some of the biggest routes, and we've talked about, of course, South Africa, Nigeria, Kenya all the time. Historically, of course, South Africa has kind of been the entry point to Africa for a lot of companies that are connecting to Africa. And then recently, Kenya, Nigeria, so for the East and West, these have been the hubs or the areas that are growing with international capacity. So I wanted to look at these, and also just because we're in Ghana, let's throw Ghana in too, because actually Ghana is very interesting for this. What this slide is showing in this graph, orange is Africa and blue is Europe. And if we look at South Africa, we see a fair amount of orange. So there is connectivity, intra-African connectivity, about 40%, maybe almost that, but 40%, and then the rest is back up to Europe. South Africa, of course, is extremely well connected within Africa, but the routes from Europe are so huge that every time there's capacity added, you know, you'll do like a 10G to somewhere in Africa. Well, they'll do only hundreds to back up to Europe. So that's why you have the kind of 40-60 split for South Africa. But if you look at Kenya, they're the golden child for intra-African connectivity. You see now this has been changing a lot over the last 4 or 5 years. 75% of their international capacity is actually connected within Africa. Okay, so that's a huge change. Now, given we were talking a little bit about this last night too. Now what we're seeing, of course, is like Kenya, but Kenya to say Djibouti instead of Kenya all the way up to Marseille, or so. But that's still for us, even though it's kind of transit, we still count that as intra-African. Okay, but the thing about Kenya is Kenya is kind of entryway to all of the countries in the east, a little bit more inland, and it's a way to get DRC, et cetera. So it's kind of like a hub or going inland. So it's a very good intra-African hub that's growing. Now, if you look on the West Coast, on the other hand, if you look at Nigeria, Nigeria is still very Euro connected. Only about 20%, and maybe up to 25% of capacity is intra-African. It's really, really focused on Europe. Okay, that may be changing soon. We'll see. And then Ghana is somewhere happily in between. About 50%, maybe just a little bit under, is to Africa, and the rest is to Europe. A lot of this, Ghana kind of serves as the entry point, going up to Burkina and just into West Africa, in some of the neighbors as well, and over to Togo, it's pretty close, etc. Digging a little bit deeper, we'll go country by country just to look. It's starting with South Africa, 55% to Europe. You see UK is number 1, and France is number 2, and Kenya is only number 3. But still, that's a huge route, the South Africa-Kenya, that's been growing over time. In Zimbabwe, okay, we have one terrestrial route going in, and then Namibia is growing, etc. And the other 28%, like I said, Africa is well connected to all other countries within Africa, but a lot of them are smaller routes, especially compared to the routes to Europe. And then looking at Nigeria, this is where we see the 75, 80%. A lot of that is back up to the UK. But also connected to Ghana, because Ghana and Nigeria are working together, but Portugal is number 3. And then South Africa. Actually, it's really only been pretty recently that we're seeing a lot more capacity from Nigeria to South Africa. Surprisingly, Nigeria, like a lot of the traffic wouldn't go down south, they'd all go up to Europe. But now, especially like, even though WAX was there, et cetera, SAT3, it was really, we saw a little bit more coming online once we saw ACE finish up that last leg to South Africa. And now, I mean, with Equiano coming, et cetera, we're seeing a little bit more capacity going there. And then Ghana, okay. Similar to Nigeria, a lot to UK and a lot to Nigeria, but also hitting all the neighbors, which is good. You want that for the interconnectivity. We see connected to Togo, Cote d'Ivoire, and Burkina. Okay, and this has been growing. I swear I'm not even pushing this. I don't know if somebody's doing it for me. That's great. Okay, now this is the other map. This is a map that I only do for, I know, I always put this plug, but it's a map we only do for AFPIF. It's tracking intra-African routes, okay? And started this, I guess it was in 2016, that was 2015. But this is all of the same scale, just so we can see the lines get fatter over the years, okay? If we go back to 2016, we see east, a lot of little routes all over, and some kind of, a little bit in the west, but not super connected. And then let's skip a couple of years, go 2019. We're seeing some lines getting fatter, especially South Africa to Zimbabwe. And, a lot more going on in the east, a little bit in the west. And then 21. Okay, now it's starting to get bigger. Now we got Zimbabwe to Zambia. We're getting a little bit of movement between Kenya, Uganda, down to Rwanda. Things are starting to look better. And then 2023 being oh no, sorry, that was 21. Come on. There we go. Okay, 2023. For me, this is kind of, it's an exciting slide, because now we're really starting to see a lot more interconnectivity, especially when you look on the west side, connected up South Africa to the west. Like I said, a lot of this is with ACE coming online, but we're seeing a lot more intra-African there, not just all going straight back up to Europe, but actually connecting between Africa. And of course, the east is getting huge fat lines, but to Kenya, of course, up to Djibouti, of course, but also we're seeing a lot of stuff. And if you notice, like across the center, we're seeing through the DRC that's starting to develop as well, some kind of crossing Africa instead of going around Africa. So for me, it's an exciting slide. I don't know, maybe not for you, but it's me. Okay. Okay. Oops. Sorry. Okay, now looking at top 10 countries. These are just the top 10 countries in Africa. I used to always take out the North African because it's kind of a completely separate market, but you know, I can't do that. I have to put North Africa in there too. But as you see, it always dominates in terms of total international connected or IP capacity. The top four, and there's like three nice distinct groups in the top 10. If you look at the first group, with the highest international connectivity, Egypt, Algeria, South Africa, and Morocco. Which country stands out? South Africa. Okay, so it's all North African countries except for South Africa. So huge amounts of capacity. These are kind of in their own group, but mostly North African. Second set, we have Kenya, Nigeria, Djibouti. As we've talked about many times before, these are kind of the growing markets, the growing hubs. They're all major hubs, of course, but you know, not as much capacity as South Africa, etc. And then kind of the interesting group too is, well, we have Tunisia in there, but Tunisia, Ghana, go Ghana, and Cote d'Ivoire. And Tunisia, of course, North African, but small population, etc., but big further population. But Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire, that's pretty interesting. And if you look at growth, I'm sorry, all the red dots, I should have pointed this out, is all growth. It's 3-year CAGR. We see a ton of growth, and especially the further you go to the right, you see in the 40%, 50% growth. So these are kind of areas that are really, really starting to take off. Okay, now those were the top 10 we looked at. Now I'm shifting to the top 10 in terms of growth. Leading off the pack, we were all waiting for this to happen, and it's starting to. DRC is really starting to take off in terms of connectivity with over 100% growth. Togo too, maybe it was a small country and didn't have a ton of connectivity, so there are a couple of big pipes that go in and it shoots up. So a lot of growth in Togo. Burkina Faso, that's all kind of west side, west north, go west. Namibia, probably with what's happening with Equiano and all that stuff going on, who knows? Rwanda, all right, last year Rwanda. Okay. Congo, Mauritius, I'm sure there's some Mauritians here. In Mali, Cote d'Ivoire, Ethiopia. These are all very exciting high growth countries right now that we're looking at. Okay, now shift a little bit to wait for time. I just want to till 10:30. I'm okay. So I have to time out the last like 105 slides. Okay, then looking at the 10 gig prices, we're not doing it yet. It's coming. But for 10 gig, we see a pattern here, of course. These are all markets that there's already a fair amount of competition in. So we see prices here dropping a little bit faster than in other areas. But for 10 gig IP transit, about $1 a meg. And Accra, Lagos, $1.50. Nairobi, surprisingly, who's always leading in price drop, is high compared to the West, up at about 3. Kampala, just basically since you're in land, sorry, Mike, is the highest, 350. Now, I know some of you guys who were talking to Mike last night, other people are like, oh my God, 10 minutes? Okay, well, I got to speed it up then. Sorry, guys. Yeah, this you'll see on the wholesale side. Yeah, prices are dropping, and of course on the retail side, people are like, "I don't see this prices." There is a little bit of a delay between the wholesale retail side, but it's dropping. It's coming. Okay, and then shift to wavelengths. Here we're looking at the 10 to 100 wavelengths. Once again, or the red dot is price multiples. in Africa, unlike the rest of the globe, 10G waves still make up a large portion, a very large portion of sales. But 100G is growing into demand, and not just content providers, other providers as well. But of course, they're mostly on the to Europe routes. There are some intra-African ones as well. And but 100G waves on key routes have dropped from about 7 times from 3 years ago to just three times for Lagos, London, and Joburg. That's some serious dropping. Okay, and then a couple slides about infrastructure stuff, looking at IXPs, a little bit of CDNs, and then smiling. So first, this is actually a slide that I was showing last year. I mean, it was updated, but this is just showing the number of IXPs per market. You see like a fair scattering. You're like, wow, Africa has a ton of IXPs. That's great. With close IXPs, you know, localized traffic, lower cost, less IPT, central elements, you know, all that. And I sourced all of this from IXPDB and peering database. Guess what? They're both good. When I pull out data, my first go-to, sorry guys, is IXPDB. Super easy to go in there and pull the data out. A lot of the data is super up to date because like what Kyle over there has been working on, doing snapshots of like what I was looking at, like ASNs per IXP. I can look at, you know, by month and track it that way, just easy. And then for peering DB, of course, a lot of good information. There's a lot of IXPs in there that don't show up in the IXPDB because they're not, you know, it's added stuff. Anyway, so I have to look at both when I'm putting these together. And then this year, a slide I did is based on ASNs. There we go. Okay, this is the same. Okay, but we're looking at number of ASNs connected within an IXP. And this shows, so you see that there are about the same size of IXPs all over, but now you see IXPs per ASN, and you see kind of where the bigger IXPs are. And I don't know, I think that's a super interesting slide. And I know Kyle likes it. So, okay, ooh, somebody's switching from, good. Okay, now switching over to CDNs. Actually, this is a slide from last year. We had about 46 CDN, like CDN pops in Africa from 13 different providers. And if we look at this year, I added like 3 more providers, so 16 providers. And it's getting there. I did click it. Next slide, please. There we go. You know, for CDNs up over almost 100 that I found. Looking at, I did add G-Core, so I got you guys in there. And there were quite a few, so you guys are good now. Okay, and also this added 10 cents. I didn't have a lot of 10-cent data, but they gave me a ton of data. So now I know there's a ton of 10 cents CDN pops in Africa now. And this is what it looks like. And then going over to data centers. Okay, looking at data centers, these slides will get better. This is based on information received by market, looking at power, how many megawatts, what's coming online. Last year I just had dots. This kind of shows the amount of power going in. I could do space, colo space, but there are some problems with that. But next year they're going to be bomb slides, so you just wait. But this gives you an idea what's happening. A ton, of course, of data center movement, ton of data centers coming online in a lot of different markets, not just in Lagos, not just in Nigeria, Kenya and South Africa. We're getting in a lot of different markets. It's getting very interesting very quickly. Okay, now I want to quickly talk about in my last 10 minutes, 5 minutes, talk about 4G growth, looking at end user growth, because guess what? That is really what's fueling what's going on. I mean, in addition to what we see with enterprises in cloud regions, but end users just using. Remember what we said last year? I don't know. 90% of broadband subscribers are mobile, and only 10% are fixed. But if you look at the data throughput, basically where all the demand is in terms of the amount of capacity, 90% is from the fixed line and only 10% is from mobile. So we'll look at 4G really quickly and then look at fixed. 4G, only in Africa, only 31% of all subscribers are 4G. The rest of the world, it's 60%. So a lot of room to grow there, and it's growing. 5-year CAGR, 50%, and now year on year around 20%. That's pretty huge growth. And 5G is still not here, except in South Africa, only 5%. Oh, darn. Penetration. Come on, baby. One more. There we go. Okay, looking at the top 10 4G markets. We got Egypt up there, South Africa, Nigeria, kind of the same guys we're seeing, but guess what? The ones that have the most international connectivity highest also have the largest 4G and FTTH rollout. We see Nigeria, Morocco, all the northern countries in there, Tanzania, etc. In Ghana, it's in there, number 10. Go Ghana. Yeah, I knew it was good to come to Ghana this year. Okay. Oh, darn it. Okay. Sorry, there's super long delay, so it's like 4G growth by country. Looking at growth, guess what? Mali's on top of it. They're a huge 4G growth. I didn't know that. Well, now I do. Go Mali. I know there's a couple people from Mali. Bonjour, très bien. Okay, Libya, I didn't know that. Ethiopia is really taking off as well. Senegal, but just down the line, a lot of movement 4G. Let's go to fixed. This is more for Mathieu. Fixed broadband, slower growth rate than mobile, of course, but 5, is that the 5 minute? Okay, good. I think we got it then. Slower, but still pretty decent growth. And remember, just a little bit of fixed broadband means a lot of capacity needs. After a little dip in 2020, COVID, not sure. 10 to 15% growth, which especially with Africa too, that's kind of huge. Global average is much smaller. But fixed broadband, okay. Come on, baby. Sorry. There we go. This is everything. DSL, all fixed broadband. We got Egypt, number 1, Algeria, South Africa, Morocco. Once again, guess what? These are all the countries with the most international capacity. Corresponds very well with all their broadband end users. There's Mathieu. Lower growth, but huge already. And then you see, as you get further to the right, Ethiopia, a lot of growth. Nigeria, a ton of growth too. Now let's just hone in on fiber. Okay, that weird dip in 2020, but this is to a different scale, but still almost 40% growth the last 2 years. We're really seeing fiber grow very quickly. And then looking by country, South Africa, probably one of the most mature. Of course, growth rate is very low, but look at these other countries, Algeria, that I didn't know. Angola, Cote d'Ivoire, all these guys are over 100% growth. Senegal, Libya, Reunion, Ghana, you're in there again. Go Ghana. Okay, Togo, neighbor, awesome. So a lot of fiber growth. Okay, and now, since I just have a couple minutes left, let's go to the question everybody's asking about, so what's going to happen in 2 Africa lands? Okay, a couple things, who knows? I mean, it's already starting to happen, especially for pricing. You have prices going all over the place, either trying to get the last kind of profit out of what's left before prices drop, or people dropping prices like crazy to get market share before all this new capacity comes online. So it's all over the place. So as I do very often, let's hop over to South America and look at what happened in South America, especially Brazil. We'll look at when Monet, Sachs, Brusa all came online. This was a lot of new capacity. It was already a mature market, but you added these all of these subcables to Miami, and what happened with pricing? Okay, cool. You see up to 2015, these all came on in 2017, 2018. I see prices are pretty steady. It's globally around 20%. I don't know. It's always 15%, 15 to 20% a year decline. But we see when these came on, bam, prices, increased the erosion rate up to 30 to 45% for those 3 years. And then guess what? It happened 1 year, 2 years, and then it goes back to stable again. And then I went to Africa data, and it's really hard to go back to 2010 to find a lot of data points on pricing. IPT really kind of starts. We collect a lot of pricing in about 2015, 2016. Usually what this indicates is when there's more competition in the market and more providers offering, that's when we start getting more data, of course, because people are trying to benchmark. And if you're not the only guy, then you're okay with sharing data, et cetera. So, but I did go back and I did find, we did have some quotes for 10G waves back to 2010 and 2011, where 10G Joburg, London was above $500,000, $500,000 to $600,000. And then guess what? I mean, of course, there weren't a ton of quotes, but there were quotes. And I'm sure I pushed the button. Let's see what happened. Yeah, there it is. Okay. And then what happened? Remember 2009 to 2012, all the cables that came online in Africa, that was the big wave, okay, tons of new capacity, et cetera. All of a sudden in 2013, bam, we saw a decline of over 40%. So it kind of fits the model. Wow. But then after the next 2 years, 2014, 2015 kind of slows down again, or in terms of price erosion. Got it. And then I don't know what happened. 2016, I'm like, what the heck happened? And then I remember, hey, that's when I started going to app tips. And it's when all the content providers started to show up, like Google, Meta, Microsoft, etc. When they all started showing up, guess what? There was more and more competition. As they moved in, we're buying lots of capacity, asking for lower prices. All the other ISPs, et cetera, are asking for lower prices. And we do start to see prices start to drop. And we see a lot more competition and we get a lot more price quotes at TeleGeography. So a huge amount, a second drop in about 2016, it's been dropping steady, back down to about the 20% level for the last 2 years. Like it is coming. Okay, so that's it. Made it under time. So looking ahead, well, first to finish off with to Africa and what's going to happen capacity side. You know, in a lot of these mature markets, it's not what a lot of people are going to add capacity, but it's not going to be insane growth. Of course, where you're going to see a lot of the big growth is in markets that don't currently have a ton of capacity. And guess what? All the providers are adding in increments of 100 gig waves and not 10 gig waves, especially as subcable. So now, and just in the last couple of years, is where we see booming in terms of international IP connectivity in Africa. So I think over the next couple of years, we're going to see huge growth. Going through, with subcables, increased competition. Nice thing, I didn't talk at all about this, but we talk about it a lot, is with 2 cable cuts, with WAX and SAT3, everybody's figuring out, ooh, heck, man, that's latency, performance isn't great. Going around the other side of Africa, adding cables, guess what? Better redundancy, okay? That's great, performance increases, etc. More cables is good. But then as we see the cloud data centers like building out in Africa, right now it's all South Africa, 5 different companies. Okay, local zones, good job, AWS in Kenya and coming in Nigeria. As we see more of this, a lot more traffic stays in Africa. End user demand, a lot of good things coming with fiber going in and with 4G really, filling out, great. You still have 5G coming. And last, like I said, to Africa, prices dropping for 1 year big and then back to steady. And that's it for me. So if you have any questions, I don't know if we do questions now. If not, run me down and, well, don't run me down, but find me and we can chat and talk more about all this. Okay. Thank you very much. You guys rock. After.
Thank you, Patrick. In fact, we shared our first AFPIF was Maputo because we were both there our first time. So yet again, he's one of the, like Frank, who I met there for the first time, and He keeps following me around the world.
Yeah.
But he's quite
wait,
nice.
Vice versa. No, yeah.
We've got time for one quick question.
Okay, then it can't be Nichelle. We'll do that later. Oh, Mathieu.
Mathieu.
And then Kyle.
Well,
If it's
no,
quick.
that's yeah.
Oh, sorry. Oh, no. Sorry, Kyle. You're cut out.
Let's see how long his question is
Okay.
before we sell more
Okay.
space.
And while he's doing that, you look fabulous today, Kyle. Good job. Are you like introducing a minister or something?
Are you like royalty
Yeah.
this week?
You're out of t-shirt and shorts? What the heck?
And a reminder, when you ask a question, name and affiliation, please.
Yes. Oh, okay, it's working. Hi, if it's not Tisha, it's going to be me. I was looking on
Who
your
are you?
slide, Mathieu from GVA. I was looking on your slide on capacity from South Africa, France being number 2. But I was wondering if it's mainland France or if it's Réunion Island, which got a lot of capacity with Métis out of Durban.
I'm sorry, to France, you said?
On your capacity between South Africa and other countries. Destination number 1 was UK, then it was France, and Mauritius was 4th.
Oh,
But
yeah.
I was wondering if it was France, mainland in Europe, or if it's Réunion Island, which is also part of Africa.
Yeah, wait, you said to mainland France?
I don't know.
Yeah,
It shows capacity, but it doesn't show Réunion.
It's
And-
any for that slide, it's by country. So it's like any of the landings in France. That makes sense? So it's for the whole country.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, in Europe, but I guess France is number
Nirani,
2.
can you use a mic, please, so we
France
can't
is
hear
number 2, but not going to Europe. It's probably 80% going to Réunion Island, and then
Oh,
only a little
Réunion.
bit going to Europe.
Yeah. Is it considered France? It's considered, yeah. We do, wait, how we collect the data is for Réunion, it's not included in France. Is that the answer? Is that the one you're looking for? Yeah, it's like route to route. We don't, it's by location and not like France Outre-mer. It's like France and then Outre-mer is separate. That make sense? Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
Kyle.
Right. Yeah. Kyle Spencer, Uganda Internet Exchange Point. I had a quick question. Is Uganda to Kenya the largest intra-Africa traffic route?
Well, for inland terrestrial, yes.
That's a big caveat, but that's still cool.
Yeah,
That was on
because
your map. It looked like it was the fattest line.
yes, it is. Because like when we show like Uganda, we show like South Africa, Kenya, almost all of that is sub-cable. But if we go inland terrestrial, that's
Okay, so terrestrial,
Yeah.
intra-Africa,
Yeah.
Uganda to Kenya is the biggest route.
right. That's a huge route.
Not using sea cables.
Yeah. All right. Go Uganda. Kampala 2024. That's just kidding. 2027.
Okay,
Is that good?
I think we're good because people want coffee and we'll run out of time later.
Okay.
Thank you again, Patrick.
Thank you.
Great, wonderful, whatever.